The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of this protracted experience of death. And I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation forever. What's happening? Benton here, trying to find my way out of this paid parking outside of Milwaukee. Looks like somebody hit the fence. It wasn't me. This road, man, coming in and out of here has so many deep potholes. It takes several minutes to crawl down this road. Not a fan. Not a fan. Better engage the old lock the diff there. Hang on. Yeah, this is brutal. So I figured the royal we may as well engage in a spiritual brainstorming session. Oh, and I'm burying the lead. Yes, we are. Royal we back in the truck, as I'm sure the majority, not that there's, well, is there a majority? Either way, if there's such a thing as long-time listeners. And I'm not disputing that there is. It's more of a tongue-in-cheek. So I guess feel free to recognize yourselves in the chat or not. It's up to you. But there's really no explanation other than this seems to be seems to be what to do right about now. What else am I going to do? And shockingly, the company pulled its head out of its ass and managed to. The major factor is it's 3 a.m. and I'm rolling. I'm rolling out of this parking with my my empty trailer, and then I'm headed 2 hours to Chicago area to drop this trailer and pick up a loaded trailer. That's a local delivery in, I think, in Chicago. And I guess when I get to the drop yard, we'll spend some time making sure that there's no low clearances. That's the major thing with Chicago is lots of low bridges to potentially crash into. Here's the worst of it. You got to go real slow. This is tear your truck up, hot enough territory, 2 miles an hour. Brutal. All right, we're clear. Stopped and grabbed a pizza yesterday. One of them fancy, expensive, tiny little pizzas. It was tasty, man, but The old gallbladders, and I don't mean the actual gallbladder. I'm having some pain in my upper shoulder, right upper shoulder, that generally I would associate with gallbladder distress. I'm sure I'm okay, feel fine, but it's never free, right? No lunches are free. Was it worth it? I don't know. I guess it depends on how long my shoulder hurts. This is a well-known pain to me in that area, but it's been a while. It's been a while since I felt it. Yeah, we're all up in there, buddy. It's a tad bit distressing to experience that this morning. I was not expecting it, certainly. One small pizza. Now, the thing is, when somebody's like the old me is eating a lot of, regularly eating so-called bad food, it's not that noticeable, right? Clean up the old diet, and then the next thing you know, it's like, oh man, what did I do to myself? Oh well, live and learn, I suppose. Oh, is that what you're calling it now? Life? Is it life now all of a sudden? Now, I do think there can be some benefit in treating oneself on occasion. And I would expect whatever this is to clear up fairly quick. I think it's mainly just reminding me, like, hey man, let's not go back to that in the long run. Fair enough. Message received. Even my neck. Wow, I'm losing a little bit of, actually losing some range of motion. Hmm. Breathing's affected a little bit as well. I don't think I'll be doing anything like that for a while. When I had the mezcal and the Mexican street tacos at a restaurant, I had a little bit of fucked my stomach up a little bit, but I didn't have any of these type of symptoms. Might just stick with that on occasion. That's the thing about these pizzas, man. You just never know what kind of oil they're using, and I just don't trust to try to ask them. I would rather just take my chances and use my judgment. 25 degrees on the dashboard. And I will say this, trucking, as far as the actual physical, like sitting in the seat, holding the steering wheel, the way my upper body's positioned, the head movements, all of that certainly works for me. And then as far as the spiritual brainstorming, at a certain point, I recognized that in that this lifestyle, so called, is conducive. It is conducive to so called spiritual progress, at least in my case. Um, Not that other, methods wouldn't be, but, this certainly fits the bill, at least for now. It was delicious, I have to say, unlike the pizza that I had months ago in Connecticut, uh, which was quite disappointing. And I go for the gluten free, I went for the cauliflower crust this time. Part of that is, and I usually do that mostly because number one, I'm able to afford it. Number two, I don't have a gluten intolerance, but it's too much of a crapshoot, um, with what I've been through digestively, if that makes sense. Feel like got a better chance with the alternative crust, and they taste fine. The major thing is they can be significantly more expensive. There's old Dolly Parton on the billboard saying, "Find the good in everybody." Hey Dolly, how you gonna love a demon? Was there some industry or Hollywood types that did you find the good in all of them? All them demons? Dolly, is that what happened? And on my post tab, on my channel, I shared a interview with Shia LaBeouf. Fantastic interview. And I do want to make it clear, sometimes when I share these kind of more normie mainstream channels, it's usually not any sort of endorsement of that channel or their content or the host or the content creator, right? It's usually for a specific, there's a message, there's some info, like there's something to be learned, there's something to be gleaned. All right. Reminds me of I checked out some books, some Scientology books from the library one time, and the lady was laughing at me, and it's like, I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking, I'm not joining, lady. I mean, if I was joining Scientology, I'm pretty sure the last place getting their materials from would be the fucking library, right? Is there like a poor man's track to going clear or whatever? Like, what are you, like, isn't it okay to just find something interesting and then maybe extract, some sort of information and then put it into my brain and remix it and bring forth a meaning, whether now or in the future? Imagine imagine being a librarian and on some level, mocking or ridiculing or fearing ideas, right? Of course, they all joined the cult of COVID a few years later, but there's really no reason to, nothing to be gained from pointing out, show me a human, I'll show you a hypocrite. That doesn't really get one anywhere. And the predicted zero viewing has come to pass. And I can't even say that I have mixed feelings about that. On some level, I do prefer the idea of speaking to myself, but then some would say, well, then what's the point of, putting it onto a YouTube channel, a live broadcast? Well, the live side of it is I'm simply unwilling to devote whatever time and effort would need to go into making prepared videos. The reality is, at this time, views and attention would be way more likely from a prepared video, especially with if it had actual video and not a vibrating icon. Not that that's necessarily the issue, but. And then some have recognized, he tends to ramble the first 20 minutes, and then maybe the stream heats up later on. So we'll just do other things until then. Check in later, right? But then eventually, and as we did go to one viewer and then back to zero, I still foresee a day in which, I talk for an hour and it stays at the zero the whole time. And then there seems to be, at least a certain number of people that listen to the replays later on in the day. And that's remained consistent, although it's continues to drop off as I see a billboard, do this for you. And it's some sort of online university, and it's a somewhat attractive black woman, her face and her very confident visage, right? Do this for you. And I've been listening to some Kevin Samuels, mainly because I need content to listen. Well, I shouldn't say need, mainly because I listen to a lot of content by choice. And I have a familiarity with a lot of that material, none of which is tied to the person or the personality of Kevin Samuels, who certainly is debunkable as a person. Of course, debunking the person doesn't debunk the ideas, as we know. And then I've always kind of found it curious, the idea of making content from having conversations with women, about men and dating and all of this. But it is sort of interesting to see and to witness the levels of delusion, nearing Jack Talcott levels at times. And then also how entertaining delusion is, and self-delusion. Is there any other kind? I don't know. An individual creating delusions for themselves, which, by the way, that is this world. This world is, delusion created via the subversion of the creative force of what I am. And, that force can never be owned or claimed. That's a membership or a belonging. That's not a, this is, to speak on behalf of that force. That force manifests. And that's what truth is. Truth manifests. See? And delusion is this realm's, version of truth in a lot of ways. And that's where you get to people saying, well, my truth. So, and the idea of the Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, one of his early famous sayings was, no one has any right to force data onto you, which, in some ways is a reference to this world, I would say, this realm, this system of things. But then it's also, in some ways, I take it as an acknowledgement that, I'm free to create a reality for myself. And then I'm free to inhabit that reality, and nobody can force me out of that reality. And that's where a lot of the fascination with certain personalities comes from, whether it's a Steel Toe Morning Show, Aaron Imholt, Jack Talcott from the so-called Truth Community, Stuttering John Melendez from the world of Howard Stern, and then later the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and then now the so-called Dabbleverse. And it's, I was listening to some Stuttering John, and I find him, I don't really listen to him very often. I find him insufferable. But when there's drama happening, it can be quite interesting, especially as other personalities are able to get mileage out of interacting with Stuttering John, and also by proxy acting, using John's personality, his delusional personality and nature, to use that to then almost as a stage to perform on, or a to use it as a protagonist, right, or an antagonist, and then the individual as agonist, perhaps. I'm probably confusing some of that terminology, but either way. And Benton, certainly, as I go third person, has some of these same personality traits. And in fact, I recognized many years ago there was certainly a very strong lol cow. There were certainly very, very strong facets of lol cow in, my infamous, now forgotten to the annals of the internet dustbin of my adventurings in the real world, IRL adventurings, but as told and disseminated and conveyed via the Joe Rogan Experience message board. And before anybody's mind jumps ahead and before the telephone game begins, no, Benton was never on Joe Rogan. Now, did Joe Rogan view the thread? Absolutely. I believe the man was seen viewing, although he could have chosen to be invisible. The man himself was in the thread, and he may have actually posted in the thread, although I don't remember. Not that that even matters, right? Who cares? If I passed him on the street, he would have no fucking idea who I was, certainly. I think I prefer that. And I do want to get into some notion around fame. Fame is an interesting thing because, I did blow up on the internet, and well before social media, well before the YouTube, well before any of this was really much of a thing. And, last time I checked that thread on the Joe Rogan Experience message board, 7.5 million views, and it was a top 10 all-time thread on a very, very active message board. And one that wasn't even open to the public and was still extremely active, which that's a rarity. And Joe Rogan, this predating even his podcast. And in fact, some of this crossed over into, I'm talking like single digits, like Joe Rogan Experience episode number 3, for real. Like, this is very, very, very early days. And I'm from the early days of the internet, certainly. I'm from that world. So, and it was limited, but there were people who became acquainted with the phenomenon that is Benton, and then desired and made it happen to meet me in public, almost as if I was some version of a famous person in a very, very, very limited way. And then,
also at least one person deduced where I was likely to be and drove his vehicle and met up with me. Now, his idea was he was some bozo, some no personality having bozo. And I think that in his mind, he thought that he could, and maybe he was, and that was, let me back up a little bit. This was during the time I was transitioning into homelessness, and I had a car, I was sleeping in the car, and then, of course, soon transitioned out of that. But he had a Ford Explorer, this guy, like a 90s Ford Explorer. And I guess he saw what I was doing and figured that he could do the same thing, not realizing, well, this is personality driven content, sir. So all I really told him was, well, that's great. Obviously I'm not going to have anything to do with you, but, you know, the blueprint is there, sir. Go and make it happen. Right. And you don't need me. Well, I can't. Well, I can barely. I'm barely hanging on for myself. Flying by the seat of my pants. I don't even know what this thing is. So what am I going to do for you, pilot? And again, it's people's propensity to externalize, right? And to seek to, oh, well, let's join a group. Well, here's somebody else doing that thing. Maybe I can go be in a group with them. It's like, well, okay, maybe, but what can you do for me? Right. To show up and then try to take something from me, how is that ever going to work? It seems to me like the order of the day would be to show up and offer something and say, here's a contribution. And I think that's what we see so often in these certain spaces around whether it's locales or the so-called truth community. The more powerful personalities, in a lot of ways, there's really nothing is offered to them, or nobody really shows up and says, hey, here's what I can do for you and do for the content. And I can't say never, it rarely happens, but then there are many folks who will seek to steer things in a certain direction to sort of manage from the side or the stage. And then also, as much as possible to sort of piggyback off of the content and to take what may be on offer. Am I fucking up? Hang on, I might be fucking up here. All right. Yeah, we got to get over it. We got lanes, got to be in some lanes. Okay, 41 South. I figured I might as well save the company some money, so we've turned off I told the GPS not to take any tolls since it's this hour of the morning, and this says I'll arrive at 5:08 a.m. So it's limited opportunities to experience traffic. Although it is a major city, the second largest city in the U.S. in fact. So it's always possible. I've been in a traffic jam at 2 a.m. in Chicago, certainly. That does happen. Oh, yeah, stoplights already. Way station? The fuck? Oh, it's closed. No good. And I'm getting in a space where I'm just more and more, I'm just slow rolling the fuck out of everybody because it's, and I'll try to convey this without, and I'm talking about the other vehicles on the road, I'll try to convey this without becoming annoyed, but it's just astonishing to me to look in my mirror and how often it's just some car just falling in behind. Like, man, it's 3 in the morning and it's just wide open roads out here. Like, what are you doing falling in behind? I just don't understand it. And now they finally realized that, oh, wait a minute. They pulled their head out of their ass and said, this is just foolish. But when did it become the default of, hey, there's a big rig, let's tuck in behind it? Because that is the default now. Didn't you? The default used to be, hey, there's a big rig, get the fuck around it as quickly as possible. That used to be the default state of the American driver. Now they default to, hey, look, there's a big rig, let's tuck in behind it. No matter what the conditions are, no matter what's happening. With some exceptions, like, oh, if we're going from 2 lanes to 1 lane, well, now you want to race it to the pinch point for whatever reason. That's always a fun game. But anyway, I do feel myself becoming slightly annoyed, so let me move on. And shout out to Kim before the storm, who, it's a great sign that I almost never see around anywhere. Actually, I don't see him here or anywhere else. And that's probably, he's probably doing well. There was a time in which, maybe, and I won't say his mental health, but I would say certainly emotionally, he was fairly clearly going through something, whatever that may have been. And he wasn't the only one. And he's just about the only person that there are some exceptions, but he's one of the few that I've encountered within the so-called truth community who's seemingly learned a thing or two and then devoted himself on some level to personal growth and change and then moved on to something else. Right. And he was here several months ago. And I was sort of going through this thing with the audience, and this is, it was probably daytime if Kim was here, and, we might have had 20, 25 people. It's hard to remember. And Kim was pointing out that I was sort of confused as to why certain comments were going on in the chat and why, certain things were happening. And his point was, well, a lot of these folks, they will show up and take whatever's on offer, and they will, and this is the way I think about it. This isn't his phraseology, vampirically suck off of me and drain my energies while contributing the absolute minimum, right? And it's always, it's always a transaction or sort of a bargain proposition. And so these entities, and I will call them entities. Yeah, it may or may not be a so-called human being, whatever the fuck that is at this point, whatever that even means. And, I don't view that as an altogether good thing anymore. But I also don't have a vendetta of, okay, well, now it needs to be destroyed and dealt with. That's also that's clearly a false path there, or a flawed path, what would that solve, right? Well, that's also not going to, what's going to come of that? And to what purpose, in what context? Some sort of reckoning or resolution with respect to humanity itself, like that doesn't seem possible or desirable. Again, what would there be to, what, is potentially gained thereby? And so I recognized many, many years ago, but not within the context of the internet, I recognized that, as a powerful personality with, certain strength of will and all of these things, that many, many, many entities and individuals will seek to utilize that force for their own purposes. And then now recognizing, okay, that is the larger force of what I am. That is oftentimes, more often than not, is subverted into what? Manifesting in ways that treat the blessing of what that is as if it were a curse by this And it's this inverted world on behalf of antithesis that makes it, its mission to facilitate that. And that is the "have you considered my servant Job?" That's what this place is. This place is the considering of my servant Job. That's what the entire thing is. That's how it, that's one of the many levels at which it functions. That's one of the most basic levels of functioning here. So if what I am is Job, or potentially Job, or if Job might be the thing that's in the way of the expression of what is referred to as, quote, my servant Job, who certainly would have had to be in some sort of state of confusion, that Benton's being considered less and less, what I've noticed. So, for Job to be first, that the first thing that in the story of Job, the book of Job, that's the first thing that came to mind. Oh, hey, have you considered my servant Job? Was that some version of a prosperity preacher? It's like, have you considered my servant Joel Osteen? But then it's like, well, by the way, LMAO, is he really serving us if he's this blessed, if he's this, prosperous in this delusory adversarial, the vacuous delusory adversarial realm of business transactions, right? Was Job the Joel Osteen of the day, who, when he first was appearing on the scene, and when that wholesome image, before that wholesome image had been somewhat sullied and undermined, not that that necessarily means anything, but maybe Job was an early version of that. I mean, it's hard to say. And then maybe Job, and again, I would need to go back and read the account, but then maybe Job did prove himself to be one with that, or Job, the personality and the collection of experiences, the phenomenon, right, within delusion, was able to get out of his own way, perhaps, and to let that little light shine, right, to bring that forth, perhaps. I don't know. Again, food for thought. And so yesterday, and I'll sort of, and a lot of this is going to seem disconnected, but it certainly connects. Within the context of a spiritual brainstorming, I'll see if I can bring some of this together, perhaps. And if not, that's okay. Where's my water? Hang on. There it is. Oh, and I'm completely disorganized now, having moved back into the truck yesterday. Although I'm glad, since it did happen, I'm glad it happened the way it did, but it'll take a few days to sort of get everything settled in its proper place. Oh crap! Did I forget what I was going to talk about? Shit. Maybe. Oh well, it'll come to me, or not. Silence is a meditation? Question mark. Yeah, I wasn't even able to motivate myself to go to Walmart yesterday afternoon. There was, the opportunity was there, but the desire was lacking. Oh yes, when I went, so I left. I moved back into the tractor, just the bobtail. The trailer was, 40. I think it was about 45-minute drive away. And so I ordered the pizza on my way out of the room.
and it was just like a mile up the road. And since I'm not out and about, this was getting into the afternoon. Of course, it was Sunday afternoon, and it was like a upscale pizza place in kind of an upscale area, and the well-to-do people are there all at the same time. Of course, it's something I've noticed. Something I've noted about society. It's always been this way, where a bulk of the populace more or less goes to the same places and does the same things simultaneously. But what I've recognized is there used to be more deviation, and there was, a chance of, sort of catching the off hours or whatever. But now it's just, I notice increasingly, if I go to a place, it's either just a total ghost town or it's fucking slammed. There's nothing in between. So the entire shopping area was fucking slammed. So, it's like 10 minutes of me crawling around the parking lot to even find where the fuck am I going to put this tractor long enough to walk in and pick up my pizza. And then, I can't even get out of the truck. And I can't even do that because people are parking and jumping out of their cars. And, they're out of it to some extent, which is fine. I'm out of it some of the time too. I get it. We're all kind of off in fucking la la land to some extent, lost in our thoughts, looking at our phones, just whatever that is, daydreaming. And just the, I was showered. This causes issues in public. It's one thing when I'm grimy and grubby, and I realized yesterday I cammed up, but I was so greasy looking that I guess people didn't want to look at me. I turned the camera off. And historically, if I'm on the screen, it actually draws people in. But they were like, "Look at this guy between his hair and his fucking greasy ass face. We're out." And okay, fair enough. And I'd just woken up and whatever. But my hair was did right, and my coiffeur was in order, and showered, clean clothes, other than whatever, but with some dirt on me for the truck. I can't get anywhere near the fucking truck without just dirt leaping onto me. And I've noticed other drivers, their truck is got as much salt and road grime on it. Somehow they can be near their trucks and not just have it all over their black clothes. I don't know, man. It's got to be the undiagnosed fake autism. And immediately it's the way that the environment is responding. And so this does kind of tie in with some of the stuttering John delusion. So, having some of these lolcow type of personality traits, at first glance, it feels like, there's something about Benton specifically, that these people are reacting to. And that's not the case. See, that's sort of the more, dare I say, narcissistic, self-important view of it. There's this thing, there's this creature in the environment, and it's so different in 2026. And Benton, has recognized that, conformity is the new non-conformity. So every single person in the environment has a very similar vehicle. They have very similar clothing. They have very similar hairstyles. It's, maybe it's an unaccompanied male who's picking up some to-go food, but it's mostly couples. There's some nuclear families, right?
all white people. Well, I think I saw one black guy. He certainly seemed to be under demonic oppression, though. In the Milwaukee area. And Waukesha, several high-profile media events have gone down in Waukesha, lest we forget. This was east of there, but general vicinity. Certainly a psyop type of area, I would say, whatever that means. Just got that feel, but so just trying to walk into the place and recognizing the spirit, what used to be spiritual attacks that just no longer affect me whatsoever. So here's a phenomenon that's happened to me many times. And I remember just being filled with rage and almost losing my fucking mind one time in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And it was, a lot of this is the neurodivergence and the social, just certain social things. But I remember many years ago in Fayetteville, and I must have been by myself. Maybe I was picking up some food at a restaurant. And I'd already been through, I can't remember what, but I was already sort of on edge for whatever reason. This was, this was like a much earlier, less evolved, more crude, barbaric version of Benton. But on his spiritual path, because to even talk about being spiritually attacked, and this is what I mean by a timing attack. So, and I think the two main doors of the restaurant, which were wooden doors, the way I parked, I was approaching from the side, meaning the left door, if it was all the way open, I would be like perpendicular to the door would be flat and I would be facing it, right? So instead of that, so there's going to be a lot of people who parked in the main part of the parking lot where it's busier and it's more difficult to maneuver. I tend to park on kind of the outskirts. I want to get in and get out, right? I don't want to get hemmed up. I'm always trying to avoid getting hemmed up. And so maybe there was already, a group of people entering or exiting. So I'm sort of just kind of hanging off, or maybe even I saw something up ahead as I'm walking in across the parking lot. So I'm sort of timing my arrival, right? And so I already got my guard up. So it's like the moment I drop my guard and I'm about to reach out and grab the door to enter, well, the door just pops open in my face and a woman walks out straight and then turns her entire body like into my fucking, almost puts her ass in my crotch. And now she's holding the door open while blocking, like she's taking charge of, now there's going to be this huge procession of a party that she's with, right? Now, why this is a woman doing this is curious, because a man wouldn't be able to behave this way, especially back then, because what if there's you need to at least scan the environment. We can't risk potentially putting our backside into, what if there's a man on the other side there? See, but a woman can just be totally, she can behave as if she's just, now it's gotten to where males are able to do this now too, but these are males who are not men, as we know. And, I remember in my less evolved state, just more or less at that point, I almost just turned around. I think if I hadn't ordered food and, maybe even paid already online or something with my credit card, even though this was years ago, I think at that point I would have just fucking left, because it's like, really, because I'm just trapped. What do I do? Go back into my car and try this again? Now I'm just here until this is over with. Like, I don't, for all I know, there's 100 people coming out of here. And, everybody, they're laughing and joking and, they're pausing and they're interacting and there's something about being in a fucking doorway that I would say at least 40 to 60% of the population, they are it makes them more likely to linger if they're in an entryway for some reason. And have any of you noticed this? I don't know what that is. I don't have that. I have the opposite, which is, oh my God, I'm in an entryway. Am I anybody's? Am I in the way? And if so, can I get the fuck out of the way? And this is also where I get into it with people in public sometimes who like to try to brush past me and say, excuse me. And I'm like, I'm not in the way. It's because I've already positioned myself as far out of the way as possible. Like, what do you mean? Like, I couldn't be any less in your way. Like, what are you talking about? You know, and the rare times I'm in the way, it's like, oh my God, yeah, my bad. Let me get the fuck out of your way. You know, how has this happened? Forgive me. You know. And certainly I feel some healing and some release of some energy. So I recognize this is trauma. What I'm speaking on is, and it's not just me. This is certainly happens to other folks as well. I'm not the only one this happens to. So that same exact thing happened to me at the pizza place. Right. And it's a woman, the door's on my side. Right. I'm walking up from where if the door's completely open, I would walk right into the door, if I didn't. So I'm not even afforded the opportunity to go around the door and enter I'm over here in no man's land now. Because I would probably have to turn all the way around, backtrack, loop around and get enough space to the front of the door to then begin to negotiate my way through the throngs that are exiting the restaurant. See what I'm saying? Like it's just ridiculous on its face. And so how am I there as this is happening? See, it's like, well, how is this all, like, how is the timing of this working? Like, I've been in a motel for a week. I just spent 2.5 hours moving back into a truck. If the place wasn't even busy, really, like the actual pizza place wasn't busy, because I thought about ordering a pizza several nights before, and it told me it was 2 hours for delivery. And, this was takeaway, but they're like, oh yeah, it's ready within 30 minutes. So I know they weren't busy. It was well staffed. It's early. I do everything early. Even if it's late for me, it's early for everybody else. It's 2:30 p.m. It was right at 3 p.m. probably. I think I got out of the truck about 2:50. And maybe they had lunch and, met up with some of their people and were hanging. I don't know, don't care. And here's somebody else. They tuck in behind that big rig. Hey, that's living. You're living the life as an American when you can find a big rig to tuck in behind. I mean, it don't get no better than that. I mean, that's living right there. So, but nowadays that doesn't even affect me. I'm just patiently standing there. But then, and this is what I enjoy about no longer being filled with anger and rage and wrath is, now I do sort of get to have the satisfaction of, okay, I've given y'all long enough to get the fuck out of my way. And now there's just like 6 people just standing in the entrance. So now it's just like, hey, coming through, get the fuck out of the way. But, not saying it that way, but that's the message is, hey, coming through, get the fuck out of the way. Like, what are you doing? So it's just like, pardon me, folks. And then they're like, oh yeah, excuse me, blah, blah, blah. And then, they move over. But I'm coming through either way. Like I'm just going to push through them. I don't need them to move at that point. I'm going to move them. And if they don't like it, well, it's too fucking bad, because unlike the wooden door, this is all glass, man. The entire front of the restaurant's glass. The door is glass. Women have, there's no way they don't know I'm fucking standing there by now. I mean, I'm clearly fucking standing there. And again, there's not a society. There's never been a society. In a society, everybody would have their head on a fucking swivel. They'd be paying attention to the environment. And as they're leaving, they would say, okay, here's a guy. Oh, look, he's politely giving us enough space to get the fuck out of here. How about we just get the fuck out of here?
Now, and I live in a world in which, okay, we've been in a restaurant talking for 2.5 hours, and now some of us are leaving together, and conversation can continue. However, we're getting through this motherfucking doorway, right? We're not going to stop in the doorway and keep talking. Now, we might walk 10 feet over yonder and huddle up and talk, but we're not doing it here, right? And I, of course, as a leader, I will even physically at times, if I'm in a group, God forbid, I will, move beyond the entryway, and then I'll be like, hey, let's get out of the entryway. I'm like, what are we? Again, politely, but it's like, what are we doing? It's not. We can't stand in the fucking entryway. And I just do nowadays, if I'm in public and I've already got a head of steam, I just do the coming through, and I just keep it moving. And then sometimes people are like, oh my God, what was that? Like, what do you mean, what was that? Y'all are in the motherfucking way. Now, I don't even tell them that, but it's like, the answer's clear. Y'all are in the fucking way, and that's okay, but I'm coming through and you can't stop me. Because my people played football, and whether or not y'all think it's possible, I'm coming through. Good luck stopping me. Here I come. But yeah, if there's a way around, I'll go around. And then same thing happens. I get two steps beyond them, and now people are just coming at me. People are literally just coming at me. From where? Don't know. And again, this place is not real. This is the waking dream, surrealistic unreality. It ain't real, man. This is a dream in some ways, right? This is artificial. This is not genuine. There's just, who are these people? Where did they come from? Why are they just coming right at me? Right. And again, I understand the narcissism. I've seen the Karens on YouTube and I've seen the people who think that the environment is happening to them. Like, this is not that. This is sometimes I go into the super center and I can't get all the way around the store until 8 different people have just directly came at me, meaning I'm heading in a particular direction and they come around a corner, cut directly into my path, and they're just headed for me. I'm walking in a straight line. They weren't walking towards me, and they're just headed right for me. Like, you'll never convince me that that's just somehow the way things are. Just in a real realm, there's random number generators are mathematically operating somewhere, and this is just what they've come up with. Bullshit. It ain't random. Especially, the largest capital I, capital F possible. If what you are is what I am, there is no version of a random number generator is mathematically just coming up with whatever would underlie the matrix or the so-called reality. And this is just what it's coming up with. Bullshit. It's happening because Benton is there. Whatever's happening when Benton ain't there probably is some version of the random number generator within certain parameters. Right. That's your, within a very strictly defined, that's your NPC norming side of things. Right. And I don't care how it sounds. And, the peanut gallery, and so many people are like, well, that sounds like this, that sounds like that. I don't give a fuck how it sounds. I don't give a shit. If I'm going to go out here and try to get some pussy, I need to worry about how I sound. Right. If I'm determined to go out here and achieve something specific based on the pleasures of the flesh, whether that's sexual or not, I might need to concern myself with how I sound. When we're talking about manifested truth, it doesn't fucking matter how I sound. Now, again, in certain ways, if I'm going to try to, again, I don't want to get lost in my own resentments. So I will certainly, in my own ever increasingly sensitive internal space as I feel my breath change because now there is an experience of this old stagnated resentment. That's fine. That's appropriate. See, it's appropriate in this moment for me to experience that resentment and to release it. What's not appropriate is for me to allow that emotion to become so powerful and forceful that, then more of it potentially is allowed to stagnate. That's what's not permissible. So I will not permit it. Easy. See? Easy peasy Japanesey. And so before I even got to that point, it's navigating this couples and the females, right? And the females, like it or not, we can talk about conformity as the new nonconformity all we want, and that's true. However, women are highly attuned to anything that's different or novel, right? Especially as attached to the masculine form, right? And that's a genetic, biological imperative, and they don't control that. It's programmed into the meat suit, right? There's nothing she can do about that. It is what it is. Are they tucking? They're tucking. And then I hit the flashers and they immediately realize that they're out of their fucking minds and they go around. But boy, they were tucking. See, I can't be in this society. I can drive around and watch them do these things. And see, they can't even operate their own. I'm watching. They can't even operate their own vehicle right now. They're so distracted by God knows what. Probably their phone. And it's all, let's tuck in behind that semi and continue making love with our phones, making love with smartphones. And so they need me so they can drive down the road, because without me being willing to do their driving for them, now they're finding it difficult to operate their vehicle and make love to their smartphone. Because they will always default to maybe Benton will drive us down the road. So they're incentivized to slow roll me while I slow roll them. Now we're just slow rolling each other on a wide open road in a country that historically people have been led to believe is all about go, 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 go. This pace of so-called life, the rat race, that's dead. That's over, folks. That shit is over. It's dead. It's buried. This idea where the majority of the populace is going to be employed in every day, especially Monday through Friday, it's time to go get it. That's over, man. That shit is gone. I don't know if it's ever coming back. Now, can you find versions of it? Sure, that's not what I'm talking about. In the 90s, everybody Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. was getting it. Everybody in society, with only a few exceptions, was getting some Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. That shit's over. These people are off in motherfucking la la land. Rowing your boat. Row your boat gently down the stream. May I please make love to my smartphone? And I'll rant for a minute, and I'll get back to the parking lot of this shopping center in a moment. But
Well, actually, I've now forgotten the tangent. I was about to go off on a tangent. Um, it's probably better that I stop to gather myself before I just blast off into some tangent anyway, but maybe it'll come back to me. And the proper context is it's whatever Moloch's machine needs. See, to me, the major error has been in viewing this as if humans have an ability and a desire to facilitate and foster and perpetuate on an ongoing basis something that could be referred to as a proper, upstanding, do-gooder society, with justice and all of these various things and opportunities. And absolutely not. It's always demonically based. It's never not demonically based in what serves uh, Moloch's machine, Moloch's purposes, right? This world of death and game of lies. And maybe the loads will start being late because I'm just increasingly unwilling to drive at normal speeds in traffic when I'm going to look in my mirrors and the five other vehicles on the road are attaching themselves to my big rig. It's happening right now. If I wasn't going 18 and a 45, there's two cars that absolutely would have just attached themselves to this rig. And I would have taken the one who was at the stoplight with me. I'd have three. And now here's another one coming. I'd have four vehicles just surrounding me. And my only defense against that is to drive as slow as humanly possible. And while simultaneously keeping America moving, so they say. 31 and a 45 just to keep these people up off of me at 4:11 a.m. And, now is some of this the up all night crew? Probably. Is some of this the early birds on their way to work? Sure. What's the number one consideration? Making love to the smartphone. Making sweet, tender love with the smartphone. And I'm not even saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. I got my own feelings, thoughts, and opinions. They don't know that they're doing that. By and large, they don't. And to them, it's just totally normal. Oh, what do you mean? I'm driving to the store. I'm driving to work. I'm driving home from work. I was out on the town, whatever that is, I went to my friend's house to watch the football, or I guess football's over. Whatever's going on, socially, whatever that may be. So anyway, since I lost my tangent, back to the broads, I couldn't even so I turned off the main road. I couldn't get halfway up there's an entryway. It's separated, there's like a one lane, one way, one lane coming in and separated by a little concrete median, and then a one way, one lane out of there, route them in, route them out. And then it's just suburban sprawl, fucking shopping center hellscape. You're trapped once you get in there, right? I can't, and again, I'm in a big rig. I'm way up above everybody. I can't even get halfway up that thing. And I look down, here's some woman, probably late 20s, early 30s, just gazing longingly at my fucking coiffeur, I assume, because, as I'm checking into the hotel, I got into some kind of conversation with the nice lady who worked there, the nice black lady who worked there. And, very unpretentious, down to earth type of lady, probably in her 40s, I guess, maybe late 30s. And She made some comment about that I looked much younger than my ID or whatever, and I misunderstood what she said. And so since my gray hair was covered up, I'm like, well, wait a minute, pulled my hat off. I said, yeah, I understand my hair is messy, and then I realized, oh, I just misunderstood what she said, which happens. But then she further commented on my hair, which she said, that's in style, right? Which it is. For some reason, my exact hair color is in style. At a certain point, I'm on Sunset fucking Boulevard, maybe a year ago now or whatever. And there's and I don't watch any of these shows. There's some TV show. I guess they reboot fucking Love Boat or some shit. I don't know what they done, but there's some white guy somewhere near my age, and with pretty damn close to exactly what my fucking hair looks like when it's that same length. And I don't have to do anything to it. I don't have to style nothing. I don't have to style. It just looks like that. No style, no nothing. All I got to do is get my hair wet and let it dry, and it just, dude, I look like I could be on a fucking movie set. I'm not trying to brag. It is what it is. I look like I could be the talent on a motherfucking TV show or a movie. Just get my hair wet, take a fucking shower, run a towel through my head, let it dry. I look like I'm, I guess they say you got to put makeup on for the cameras. Put a little makeup on him, he's fucking ready. I don't know what that is. I didn't have anything to do with it. You can say, oh, that sounds this way or sounds that way. I don't know what to tell you. I've walked around LA and I can tell when somebody's making fun of me. It was early in the morning and I wandered into a movie, a production, and the guy thought I might be working for the production. It's like, no, I'm a local homeless person, but I was like, well, I guess I must be doing something right. If you momentarily thought I might be on this film production or whatever this is. Now I got a semi behind me, so I got to actually drive instead of slow rolling all the four-wheelers. And it's one lane, or I would just get him around me. He's going to want to make some time, unlike me. And at a certain point, I got to watching some teen, early 20s, content creator who, he buys old cars or whatever. And see, there's an 8'6" low clearance if I made it right. But yeah, and my hair was pretty close to the length of his, and all I did was take a shower, toweled my fucking head off, and my hair dried, and I looked at his thumbnail, and I looked at my fucking hair. I said, my hair looks exactly like his, except I'm gray. And he's got 1 million something subscribers, gets all these views. Somebody's styling that fucking kid's hair, most likely. That kid goes to a fucking style. Why does my head look like I have a stylist and I don't? I don't fucking know. I'm chalk it up to the waking dream, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again. So when I'm in public, at a minimum standard of presentability, it's almost like I'm a famous person. I don't know what to say. You can choose to accept that or I don't care. I'm not famous, right? When I was younger, people used to try to tell me who they think I look like a lot. Whatever. And that depended on the length of my hair. And then it got into Ashton Kutcher territory. It's like, well, do I need a haircut? Because I don't look anything like Ashton motherfucking Kutcher. I just happen to have, shaggy ass hair at the time. And then when it was shorter growing out, it was Matt. Apparently looked like Matt Damon. And I like that one because he's not that good looking, really. Matt Damon, not a particularly handsome fellow if you really want to get into it. Like, yeah, let me be the less handsome dude. He ain't ugly, but this is not, right. Bradley Cooper got the sexiest man alive. I'm like, am I the only one that's realized one of his eyeballs is in the wrong place? Like,
What are we talking about here? He's not one of the most handsome men in the kingdom here. Again, yeah, do people find him attractive? Sure, but I mean, come on, what's happening? If both his eyeball, if both of his sides of his face were mirror images, sure, but that one side ain't keeping up its side. The one side of his face it's not pulling its weight. You know, go find a straight on picture of his face. Tell me I'm wrong. And it also says something about the desperation of people, and it also says a lot about what is uplifted these days, right? And what people are really. And again, hang on, I got to haul balls and try to not have to wait through this light, but I think I'm fucked. I think I hit it at the exact. Yep, I did. I hit it the exact moment to have to wait all the way through this bitch, or I could do what I usually do, which is just run that fucker. But there's enough traffic around where I'm just going to wait. And that's another. Hey, add that to the 20,000 reasons why most people would never do this job. It's not like driving a car. In a car, I could easily just put my foot down and go right through that motherfucker. You can't do that in a big rig. Not from that far away. It's like, the light just turned green. Oh, there's no way I can get there unless it just stays green a really fucking long time. I ain't making it, and it's going to turn yellow right when I can maybe make it, but I'm still going to be running the fuck out of it. And a big part of not getting tickets and not getting in accidents is we don't run lights. Now, if there's nobody coming, I might just make a left turn on one of them red arrows. That's a different matter. But and so when I first got out of the truck at the shopping center, and see, here's what causes me a lot of problems if I allow it to, is that the males ain't in charge. It's so when it's a male and a female, she's physically leading him about the environment. The problem is she doesn't understand or care about male dynamics, right? So at that point, he's effectively a dog on a leash being led by his master, except every once in a while there's the big dog called Benton who's just roaming free, not on a leash. And he's also undiagnosed fake autistic neurodivergent, trying to stay the fuck away from everybody, trying to be lost in his own thoughts because he's walking probably for exercise, just walking around, right, for his own purposes. And it just happens to find himself in a Sam's Club parking lot. Oh, look, it's Sunday. It's noon or 10 a.m. And some man, or male in this case, for whatever reason, has allowed himself to be gamed into he's got a mommy. He's a 7-year-old, and mommy determines where he goes and when for what purpose. Except, yeah, when I was 7, that was the case for me too. Except by age 10, I left mommy at the house and I got on my bicycle and I went wherever the fuck I wanted. As long as my parents weren't, because if I did certain things in the community, my parents would have found out immediately. Such as what? Go on anybody's property uninvited, whoever that may be. Don't do that. Right? There's just certain things you can't do. Hey, I saw your boy out there playing in traffic, or I saw him riding his bicycle in the highway or whatever,
certain things ain't allowed. And you know, this idea that it takes a village, right? You know, there was that level of community was still functioning, you know, when I was a lad. So, you know, like that board game Emergency, the child learns, okay, just don't do these things, or it's like putting the metal tongs to the metal and it goes, okay, don't do those things. And then other than that, do whatever the fuck you want. We don't care. And if you come here and it's Saturday afternoon, we're going to say, why are you in the house? That's what I was told. Why are you here? Now, if the answer was, well, it's a fucking thunderstorm, Mom. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's a fucking thunderstorm. I hadn't noticed the goddamn downpour. Or probably Mom would have looked out the window and saw it was downpour. So it's been a long fucking time since I had a mama. As far as this is where I go, this is what I do, I'm on a leash. Right. And I never really was even on that leash in the first place, but I at least had to know to put myself back on the leash to not get in air quotes trouble. Yeah. Back in the day as a child. Well, now you got 35-year-old, you know, 6 foot tall, 200 and something pound males, and they're in a Sam's Club parking lot. And some of them's 45 years old, and they're in a Sam, and she's leading the procession. And you know, he's holding her pockets. To use like a prison cliche, right? A prison vernacular. And so he's lost his agency. And so then what happens is, because there's a male hierarchy, and because, well, now there's a male detects another male in the environment, and that, you know, we all have pheromones, we have body language, we have facial characteristics. Oh, this is a high testosterone male of a certain age who, by the way, could be a mugger, could be a drug addict, could be about to ask us for money. You know, we don't know what this guy is. We don't know what he's capable of. This could be lots of things. We don't know what this is. And then, is he beginning to recognize, oh, wait a minute, I don't even have control of the situation. And so then so I've already, because I've seen them, I've already maneuvered my physicality into a space where I can be left alone, except now in his own confusion, the guy, a lot of the times he'll kind of start to kind of go his own way, and then whatever that is, you know, losing face around me, it's like, because I obviously can see, well, here's just another male bozo following some woman around. Do you think I like going in the grocery store and it's just like every dude in there is following a woman around, unless he's working a job or he's shopping for somebody else, right? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But, you know, if a fellow's not already, you know, clearly in his masculine, manly hormone levels, and he's going to go to a store and do what historically was considered woman's work, and then he's going to deliver some groceries, right? That's all fine and good. But if he's already not a man, and man is a status, and that's, you know, something that, you know, it's earned through action, and it can be lost through action and lack of action, certainly. And by the way, has nothing to do with stoicism. Guess who's been off the charts masculine most of his life and has never been anywhere approaching stoic? In fact, comically overly emotional. Isn't that amazing? And then, you know, the internet removes a lot of that male hierarchy. And then you have certain people have accused me of being, you know, like a sassy black woman, or being, you know, accused of being a woman, of being like a woman, not being a woman, being like a woman. It's like, yeah, let's all meet up and have it be only males, and then let's just hang out and let's see how much of my expression you can creditably say is I'm being like a woman. Right. Because I'm bona fide at the level of my man. I'm bona fide. There's no more. The proof is in the pudding. I've been tested and tested and tested and never found lacking ever. So, we're all good on that account. Everything's lovely. I don't even have to think about it. And that's a big part of what women respond to. So it's not the narcissistic idea of, well, oh, I'm bitten and I'm so wonderful. And of course, these women, no, they're just hungry for anything different that's within a certain range of masculine. That's it. That's all. And sorry, fellas, when you're willing, and I'm not talking to the listener, when a fella's willing to let mommy lead him about on a leash, she cannot be attracted to that. She can choose to cohabitate with it. She can choose to combine her finances with it. She can even pretend to let it wear the pants, to let it wear the pants. Let's see. She can't respond to it like it's a masculine man. And so Benton can't even get through a parking lot because, number one, he's, under the right circumstances, I'm reacting to like I might be a famous person, literally. It's that level of attention at times. And then the smartphone has warped people's brains to where, and it's not the observer effect, but it's a version of this, which is they no longer are aware that if they're standing on the other side of a parking lot smoking a cigarette and I open the door of my tractor in a hotel parking lot and they immediately start staring at me as I climb out of the big rig, that I'm aware that they're staring at me. And so the fact that they're staring at me isn't necessarily the problem. The problem is that they don't understand that I'm watching them stare at me. It's like, this is bad for them. This ain't bad for me. I'm somewhat used to a high level of attention. I just don't like it. Well, who cares, buddy? And in fact, that's what the spiritual progress is for in a lot of ways. It's some of it is look, everything's a cope on some level. And part of it is just, it's a cope for, I got to pull over and take a leak. It's in some ways a cope for, a very, very, very introverted person by nature who gets a high degree of attention and always has and always will. And then, in my youth, got to grow up and be socialized in an environment where it was like, yeah, that's just, a lot of getting attention was I was probably engaging in a lot of attention seeking behavior, whether I knew it or not. And that's okay. But what I love about being from Arkansas is, to this day, culturally, Arkansas people just kind of don't give a fuck about a lot of stuff. Just really don't give a fuck. And sort of that was my upbringing. It's like, yeah, there's Benton, he's out there attention seeking. It's just he's just doing what he does. And who cares? And yeah, maybe we pay attention to it to some extent. And it's kind of neither here nor there. So to me, it's now if the person smoking the cigarette looks up, notices, oh, that's Benton getting out of his big rig, and that's just what he does, and it's kind of neither here nor there. That's normal. The not normal part is, let's watch him like he's television. I get watched like I'm TV often, everywhere I go, regularly. And so now I just stare at them, and then they realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm staring at a grown-ass man. Probably better not stare him down, because, it does become fuck or fight at a certain point.
And as a lady, they're a little more attuned to these dynamics. But when the women don't even really understand, I mean, imagine being a woman and temporarily losing track of her own physicality with respect to because women are way more in tune and way more sensitive to information, especially around what specific message is she sending to the environment at any given moment, right? So what message does it send that and a lot of this is based on her peer group. So in her world, if one of her friends or coworkers just happened to be walking up and she didn't see them, then now it's like, hey, I saw you staring at that guy. Do you know him? Do you think he's cute? Like it's immediately that, right? This is how women are, or how they used to be. And so this was the phenomenon that a lot of guys never understood, where that I got approached. Here was the absolute peak of women coming up to me and engaging me in conversation was when I was in my 20s and I wore a wedding band. Because why? It's because you say, well, it's counterintuitive, right? If a guy wears a wedding band, women are going to come talk to him, or they won't go talk to him because he's married. They know there's nothing in it for her. Oh no, you are wrong. It's all based on they won't go talk to a man that they find attractive because she has to have an excuse for when her peer group busts her out on why were you talking to that guy? Oh, you think he's cute. You like him, blah, blah, blah. She needs plausible deniability. So, oh, look, there's a guy that might be attractive. He's got a wedding ring on. I can go talk to him. Because now when the peer group says, hey, we saw you talking to that guy. Oh, he's married. She has plausible deniability. And I figured that out very quickly in my 20s. I said, because I was surprised. I just assumed, and I wasn't approached by women that often anyway. Like it happened, but it wasn't, like annoying. And it wasn't annoying while I was in my 20s and wearing a wedding ring, but it happened regularly. Women would just start up a conversation with me. And I don't mind, I still thought I was outgoing and all of this naturally. So whatever. And so and I blame the phone. I blame the looking at things all day long on the phone. And in fact, increasingly, what are people watching? They're watching a version of what's supposedly real life, so-called. And so a lot of times I think they're losing the ability to tell the difference between the so-called, IRL or the actual reality and the phone reality, which is really, there's really not even, it's kind of all the same thing at this point, seemingly. But they're losing the ability, they're forgetting, because when they're on their phone, they don't have to concern themselves with their facial expressions. And because whoever's around them in the environment doesn't necessarily know what they're watching. But if they are staring at me as I climb out of my big rig, they easily could be observed by someone in their peer group, unknowingly, unbeknownst to them. So to me, it's shocking. Just like, well, wait a minute. Look at how quickly this has shifted. Very quickly. And most folks, and I'm telling you, 20 years from now, if there's still news articles, or you will be absolutely reading news articles where studies are proving what I'm talking about. It's just I'm one of the first people to notice it. It's absolutely happening.
Just like I was waiting tables in, 2010, and, a four top of teenagers comes in and they all sit down and whip their phones out. And my thought is, oh, pretty soon, instead of talking to each other while seated at this table, they're going to text each other, obviously. And then I think I even told some people that, which were like, oh, that's ridiculous. You're out of your mind. And now that would be considered normal. Now I hear stories of, it's just normal now to be in the same house with somebody, like, and the woman's texting the husband. I will never, ever do that. I can't say that I won't ever end up married for the third time. That's not entirely up to me, and I acknowledge that. However, there's a 0% chance of me cohabitating with another adult, an adult romantic partner who's in the other room, and they send me a text that I reply to. Because all I'm going to do is say, why are you texting me? Are your legs broken? Bring your ass in here. And by the way, don't ever do that again. Pretty please with sugar on top and smack her on the ass. Thanks, toots. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? All right. Now I guess I get to race. I get to race this big rig. Anyway, it's egg yolk time. Bear with me just a moment. Find my taurine here. And so what I think is interesting is, the Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, the left, the strategy has been so normalized that most people can't listen to me say all these things without looping into problem solving, or even worse, saying, well, what's your solution, Benton? It's like, well, I mean, all the solutions, it's all being implied internally, where that's the only place I have power to solve anything, but because I have no power outside of myself. But, when people hear this, part of the way the mind has been programmed to work is to seek to resolve this, or to view it as a problem. I'm not even saying it's a problem. I'm observing and reporting. It's like, whether or not it's a problem is kind of immaterial, because it is, like, it's happening. It's going to continue to happen, clearly and obviously. And, could Benton, the fact is, there's a high likelihood, if I wanted to, I could just, in a lot of ways, just become very predatory and just sort of take what I want from this place through manipulating and all of this, just so that people can, be around me to some extent. Number one, that makes me less of what I otherwise would be. Number two, I'm not interested in that. Maybe there was a time in which I was interested in some of that. I simply am not interested. And in this so-called life, I don't do a lot of things that I'm not. I need to be interested on some level, or at least there needs to be something in it for me, right? but there's no, it is what it, this is what it is, and it's only going to get so-called worse, if you consider that to be bad or undesirable. And again, what is the NPC normie reaction? The NPC normie horde rushes in 100% of the time and normalizes all phenomena that are not incongruous or incongruous. So as long as there is a congruity to the phenomenon, without fail, the NPC normie horde will rush in and normalize that. And that is gaslighting. Because if a person is not a part of the NPC normie horde, who then is like, what are you talking about? This ain't normal. And the NPC normie horde is like, well, we normalized it. What's wrong with you? That is gaslighting. And see, it's a gaslighting via consensus. And in fact, the entirety of the socialization process, I would argue, is gaslighting, because it's a gaslighting by consensus, which is the young child, shortly after leaving its mother's womb or matrix and passing into this so-called matrix, because society seems to be happening, that becomes a consensus level. And then that's treated as if, well, now it's normal, because there's this, a day in and day out, there's these millions of trials where these phenomena are seemingly happening. Now, meanwhile, all of the phenomena seemingly are happening. Hang on, I love this, just the one car out of nowhere has got to get some of the following the slow big rig through the switchback hairpin turn interchanges when it easily could have passed me on the big road. And it's almost like they look for an opportunity to do this for whatever reason, which I find fascinating. Almost like they enjoy that feeling of being, air quotes, stuck behind the big rig. Of course, intelligence is to feel that feeling and then to attach that to, oh, wait a minute, there's a big truck. It might take the same exit as me. I'll go ahead and speed up just enough to pass it. And then maybe it doesn't take my exit, but if it does, now I'm ahead of it. I don't have to follow it through this annoying series of slow maneuvers. But anyway, that's just me, something I learned to do at a young age. And I would argue that many people understood that. And so now we see, as society changes in certain ways, the ever-present NPC normie horde always rushes in and normalizes. And that is the gaslighting via consensus. And if you are your own person, mind, body, and spirit, and I'm not saying that you are, but if you're going to, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. If it is some version of Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity, if you think you're going to spiritually practice and pay attention to your internal space and uncover the perfected path that may very well lie within, so that you may walk it in order to receive its blessings. And make no mistake, I'm completely self-interested. My motivation for seeking to uncover and walk the perfected path that I suspected lie is not the proper term, abided within me, was completely self-serving. It was for me and me only, while certainly recognizing that the benefits would accrue to others, right? So that for me to, be able to express and bring forth the blessing of what I am would certainly be a benefit to all, right? That ain't the motivation. It's not Horatio Alger style altruism, right? And that's probably not the right term. That's more of a rags to riches. But it's not an altruism. Oh, I need to do things for other people. And what do we see prisoners say? You know, I've watched many, many, many interrogation videos, right? I'm sorry, parole hearings. And so many of these complete and total scumbags, what do they like to say at the parole hearing? Oh, I want to get out into the community so I can work with children and I can work with addicts and I can help people. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you really have an actual desire to help people? Because let's be honest, the best thing y'all can do, not y'all, the best thing they can do is stay the fuck away from the community. In fact, these are people who the community recognized that these very people, out of a necessity, needed to be separated from the rest of society. So now that the parole system, in transitioning them back to society, how come the order of the day from their perspective is I want to get out here and help the community by what? Being an example for the youth? Are you crazy? Stay the fuck away from the youth. Pretty please with sugar on top. And, you know, obviously old Benton would never end up in any of these circumstances. But, you know, I'd like to think that if, you know, I had been in prison for 10 years for some insane, you know, being a predator, which again, this is just not possible. This would never happen, but meaning I would never commit those acts, but I'm not capable of that. Not in this incarnation, you know, maybe in prior I can't say, but I would like to think that I would, and again, whether or not I believed it, I would like to think that I would have the intelligence to tell the parole board, say, listen, well, clearly the last thing I'm going to do is go anywhere near the youth, because if I actually care about the youth, the first order of the day would be keep them the fuck away from people like me. I mean, but seriously, like if I was a person who'd been in prison and was now trying to get out on parole, like, yeah, keep the youth the fuck away from me and keep me away from the youth. Like, yes, let me help you. They actually go in front of the parole board and talk about wanting to go. They're like, I'd be willing to go into the schools and talk to the youth. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, they're crazy. That's normal. That's what passes for normal nowadays, right? Post-shame society. Post-shame society. Man, I need to blow my nose. I don't think I have any tissues at the ready. Oh, yeah, I do. Amazing. One moment, please. Let's hit the mute. Oh, there's a Walmart. I've been to that one. Shit, are they open? No, they don't open for a whole hour. I think this is pretty close to where I pulled off on the side of the road and went out the passenger side of the rig and fucking fell out and just landed on my face. And thankfully in the grass, uninjured. That was comical. Just fucking completely fell. No chance of catching myself.
And so, in a lot of ways, all of these spiritual practices, at least initially, and in the intermediate into the early advanced stages, you know, because there's no guarantee of the unlocking of the achievement of true knowledge of self. There's no guarantee that the being is what I am. You know, in the no internal monologue crowd, the idea that some of these entities aren't even, they're not spiritual beings in the way that I'm a spiritual being, or they're so removed from it, there's just realistically no possibility of them progressing enough in this life, so called, to get to it, right? There's what if an NPC normie devoted themselves to, see, they probably couldn't spiritually practice, probably just not able to. I don't know. But, initially, that's, for me, that was a big part of it, was like, I recognized, in order to maintain my sanity and not commit crimes, and, again, thankfully, I'm not violent. I don't have a violent bone in my body, pacifist and all of this, but, probably fairly physically capable, I'm assuming. But, it was to develop ways to cope with all of these dynamics, right? Where the very environment is attacking us, and by us, I mean individuals, right? But then and I guess to be sort of subsumed by the NPC normie horde, to become, to merge with, in a blob-like fashion, to merge with whatever that is, the NPC normie horde, there's probably some seeming advantages. But some of us, like me, I would never have that option available. That just would never be available to me. That's just simply not an option. And that is a spiritual thing to me. .38 and a 55. Why can't they pass me and go down the road? Like, I don't know. It's 3 lanes. We're the only 2 people in this stretch of road. And so I'm in the right lane and, just getting up to speed. And I look in my mirror, there's some 4-wheeler buried up my ass. The moment I hit my turn signal, and so I said, fuck it, I'll just switch to the middle lane then. The instant I hit my turn signal and started to ease over, they hit their signal and popped and, tried to pop out right next to me. Like, what is that? Like, what even is that? We could spend weeks, months, or years examining and trying to solve that one phenomenon. Just that one. Like, what is that? Because it repeats itself over and over and over again. I'm just now going 45. See? Because my ability to drive slow as fuck in a vacuum is my only defense against these people in a lot of ways. Because believe me, if I just hammer down and go 70 and a 55, they'll all hammer down and we'll just all go 70. And then a few of them will go 75 and pass me, but the whole entire group will just be going 70. Because they would rather be led than lead. Now, whether that's a leadership of themselves, or a leadership of a group, or a leadership of an idea, right, or a philosophy, or an ideology, see? And so you have collectivists, this idea of lefties, or what gets called liberal, right? The collectivist, like an Antifa or an Anonymous, and I'm not calling Anonymous leftist, I'm saying these these entities that are intentionally decentralized, meaning they don't have a centralized group of leadership, right? They don't have a figurehead necessarily. They have more like figureheads of sentiment, like a George Floyd or whatever, like symbolically, right? But so the way communism and collectivism functions is the individual internalizes the up to the minute monkey dance of the day to lead themselves internally based on progressivism. And in fact, the way for them to have power within a communist or a collectivist context, in a lot of ways, is to sort of be on the cutting edge of the gender bending or the, just whatever ideas they're putting forward at any given time, right? Versus the MAGA types, and that's its own prison, versus the MAGA types who are not leading themselves at all. They're not leading themselves, and they're thus losing their greatest opportunity to practice leadership, meaning now as a group, they lack effective leadership. So next thing you know, they are glomming on to, and again, I'm going official fiction with Trump. I'm not saying Trump is or is not any specific thing. I'm just saying the phenomenon of Trump. The next thing you know, they're giddy and gleefully attaching their the stuttering. They are gleefully hitching their wagons to, the idea of a strong man like Trump, right? Which in some ways is, at some level, that's if that's a human person, or if that was a human person, that's someone who's willing to engage foolishly with their own folly of, my shit doesn't stink. I got it like that. I'm bold. I'm swaggering, right? And I'm the shit. I mean, that's really what it is. That's really all Trump is somebody who will stick his chin up and throw his shoulders back and just spread out and go, I'm the shit, right? Whereas the lefty has their own more covert, hidden that's Obama, but he does it in a very hidden, covert way, right? But make no mistake, it's a very similar psychology. And then we get into the Leo trip of, why are pretty much all the recent presidents Sun in Leo or Leo rising? Biden being the only exception to that. Oh, there's a Whole Foods. Again, just imagine the wonderland that America would be if these stores were actually open. Again, why do I have to go there when everybody else is in there? I should be able to pull in right fucking now and, I could use a few items. I should be able to pull in at 5:04 a.m. and leave 10 minutes later with a couple of items. Nope. Whether that's a kiosk or why is there no mechanism, to facilitate that? At what point will the app say, well, Benton normally buys these things and tomorrow he's going to be driving past here at 5 a.m. Let's just send him a push notification. Hey, buddy, we see you're going to be passing the fucking Whole Foods at 5 a.m. approximately. Would you like to stop in and pick up these items? Yeah, I would. Thank you. We'll have them ready for you. Have a good day. Oh, appreciate you. Why isn't that a thing yet? Talk about economic stimulus. Well, I guess I'm going to bid you adieu. We're almost there, and I need to get ready to focus. Bye.